to address, not least being the drainage and sanitation in the low-lying parts of the constituency. We border Pambros, the lake. So the entire stretch of the constituency borders Pambros. And so during the rainy season, it's a huge problem because many of those low-lying parts get flooded. What we need are storm drains. I have heard that part of the constituency will be catered for under the Conti program. I haven't seen what the details of that project would be and which parts of the constituency would be. But I'm already in discussions with the engineers at the AMA to see what can be done in the meantime, pending the conclusion of the major drainage systems in Accra. What can be done to alleviate the perennial suffering of the people of Ablekuma West, from Glefe all the way down to Otujo. And so I am just lobbying for some dredging of the existing drains and creation of pathways for the water to drain out, to see what can be done. We'll see. Security is also an issue in terms of the scourge of armed robbery and petty robberies, and there are a few things that have already been started, and I intend to continue with those, including street lighting. There are too many dark corners in the constituency, and for miscreants to hide in and do all kinds of things. So we'll see, and working closely with the police, I'm sure we'll make a great deal of headway.
Okay.
And education is also a concern. It's very, very close to my heart. And from Shiabu all the way to Glefe, there is absolutely no public school.
Wow.
And very little available land for any such construction to take place. So we're working on a few initiatives to provide some relief to the parents and children in those parts of the and it's the most heavily populated part of the constituency. Reading clubs, I promised, and we're working on delivering, because if you get the basics right, I love reading. And I think if I speak good English today, it's because I devour books. I still read voraciously. And I want to encourage the habit in as many children as possible. Those who don't read have no idea what they're missing. There's a whole world in books. And when I was in Infansiman, people fondly remember that I always had a book in my hand, and they called me a bookworm. I was actually kicked out of class one day for not paying attention to what the teacher was saying, but reading my book under the table. She wasn't amused at all.
Always been a rebel.
Kicked out of class for one whole term, and to her chagrin, I topped the class in the exam too. She was most miffed. But there's value in reading, and I want to encourage as many children as possible to pick up that habit and discover the world of books. It's fascinating.
Okay.
So we'll do that.
All right. Now, in Ghanaian politics, as it is, you've become the poster girl for, politicians who have been vilified personally. Newspapers have dedicated whole pages to you. People have gone. How do you feel? How does that make you see the Ghanaian political terrain?
It's rough, to put it mildly. And you have to develop a really thick skin. I mean, the first time I saw a full-page spread of insults on Eslo, I said, wow. I didn't realize I was so important to some people that they would develop one whole page to insult me. I think that we need to move away from that. You may not like what the person is saying, but at least, listen, she might be making some sense. And I'm sure privately some of them would wish that I was advocating for their cause. But I think that there are too few women in politics, and there are too few, let me watch my words carefully. We need to attract quality into our governance. If we publicly denigrate, vilify, insult, abuse, violently assault the few women who dare to go into office, political life, the vast majority of women out there who are watching the way those few women are being treated get put off. Unfortunately for us, we cannot decide that we do not need women in governance. We need them. It is not possible for any country to develop holistically, when it deprives the majority of its nationals of a voice in the determination of the decisions that affect their lives. So whether we like it or not, we need women in politics. And so we must all work together to make it a more hospitable, I was going to say friendly, hospitable place for women to feel comfortable in doing politics. It is hard enough. The deck is stacked against women. We have the burden of being the caregivers in our homes. We have children. We have to take care of our homes and raise them. We can't afford to ignore them. Some have spouses. Most of them are in relationships. You need to be able to juggle all these competing demands on your time. In addition to the path we have chosen, not for ourselves, but for the good of our country, because we know that the country needs the little contribution that we also can make to its development. So I think what we can do, and the MPP showed the way by reducing the filing fees for female candidates, and most of the other parties followed suit. It's a small start, and the emphasis is on small. We can do more. We can start by identifying potential leaders, mentoring them, grooming them, supporting them, encouraging them, and training them to be able to take over from from the current generation. And it's a task that has to be a long-term plan. And the structures of the parties, also not just a party, I'm talking parties here because it's a collective responsibility for all of us. Mm-hmm. But the MPP, we've kind of led the trail in the empowering of women in the Fourth Republic, because at any point in time, we've had more female legislators than any other party. I think it is only in this parliament that it is almost even.
But even that, we are leading.
We are still leading. That's why I'm saying that we've blazed the trail. We can do more by showing the way. Let us walk away from the ruinous primaries. We have to find a way to make our primaries less acrimonious, because it's as if you're going through a war. And after you've spent most of your money and been bruised and battered and emerged victorious, now you have to go and look for even more money to wage a very expensive campaign. We need to do a lot more public education of the electorate as to exactly what a legislator is supposed to be. We don't help the cause much ourselves when we go around making promises. I didn't do that. I just told them what I could do, which is that I could advocate very well for whatever issue is on the table that affects us. And I don't know how to say that in English.
Quite troublesome. quite troublesome.
A little bit. And tenacious as well in fighting for what I think I need, or my people need me to do. So if I keep harassing you over something, you might guess that, oh, okay, let me just do it so that I'll have my peace.
What a lot of people want to know from you is that, what happened to the case that you presented to the police about the incident in What really happened?
So far, I haven't seen or heard anything. And I was quite upset when the police PRO came on air and said I wasn't cooperating with the police, because I didn't know what they expected me to do at that point. I had taken them to the scene of the offense, walked them through whatever happened. People had come forward as potential witnesses, eyewitnesses to what happened. They had identified the culprits because they live in the neighborhood with them and they know them. They knew that they were Neil Ante van der Poel's boys and would be acting on his instructions. I have told them everything. They even have the stone which was thrown at my head. I'm still bearing the scars here. And when I saw it, I was shocked that I survived without a cracked skull or something, because it was a huge stone. Apparently, they even threw a kitchen stool at me as well, but in the heat of the moment, I didn't even notice it. But the police have retrieved all that. They've got witness statements. They've actually got some of the people, and I think released them on bail or something. So far, and this April, what's today's date?
Today is the 10th of April.
14th April was the day. Exactly a year to the day will be 14th of April.
And nothing has been done.
that I'm aware of.
Welcome to my Ghana, the Ghana in which when you belong to one political party, you do not deserve justice, but in another political party, you can act with impunity. With that, I'll move to the main discussion for today. Madam Esler, there's been a lot of agitation in this country recently over, a lot of striking action and everything. At the core of all of this seems to be the economic mismanagement. What do you make of it if you hear that the government spent close to 33 million planting trees and 15 million on a confirm? That's getting foul for those of you that might not be aware. And then they cannot find 10 million to pay our teachers and doctors and others.
It makes you want to weep. It makes you want to shed tears that why are we in this situation? It's not as if we don't have the money. We do have the money, but it's a question of misplaced priorities. If the government thinks that guinea fowls are more important than teachers or doctors, or pharmacists, or judicial service workers, then we're in for a very rocky ride. And what's even sadder is that we haven't even got one guinea fowl egg, to show for the investment made a year ago. And yet, we pat ourselves on the back and say we're doing a great job. The doctors, the teachers, the pharmacists, the nurses, I'm sure, are patiently watching and observing events and will probably strike soon. Nobody is happy about what is going on. But if we hear these stories, and not just stories, these events unfold, which demonstrate quite clearly that the government in the last quarter of last year embarked on an unpardonable and justifiable spending spree, which has saddled all of us with an 8.7 billion CD deficit, in addition to 4 billion in arrears that the government owes to everybody and their mother. Teachers, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, civil servants, public servants, all the statutory funds are in arrears. District Assembly's Commons Fund, National Health Insurance Levy, the Road Fund. And these are funds that you and I have already paid monies into. We've contributed to it. And government is only required to give a percentage of the monies they have already collected from us to those funds. Government has collected those funds and spent them over and above their allocated budgetary ceilings and incurred debts for all of us. So if you turn around and you tell teachers that, sorry, we don't have money, they tell you what? We have a lot of money in this country. We just blow it on useless things. Today, we read in the newspapers that the Ministry of Information was handing out computers. The
539.
Independent broadcasters said, that's not our priority. We have other needs. If you want to help me, sit down with me and let me tell you in which way whatever assistance you give me would be most beneficial to me. You don't sit in your corner and decide that, I think they need computers. So let me just go and give them computers. I don't need it. You didn't consult me. You didn't ask me. So how can you just come and spray computers on me like confetti? But you know why they're doing that? You and I paid for 108,000 computers, laptops, from RLG last year. Only 28,000 were delivered. And they paid upfront, in full, for 108,000 computers. So now in the midst of all this outcry, let them start distributing some computers so people will see that, we have received them. We just weren't able to distribute all of them. So you ask yourself, if you had that money, was that the most appropriate use for that money at that particular point in time? And they'll say no. Contractors are owed. The doctors say these negotiations have been going on and the award was made in February of 2011. So you knew you owed the doctors their market premiums. The award was made. You haven't paid. It's accumulated. And it's not as if you're going to pay them with interest. And yet you can find the money to go and pay for laptops which do not get delivered.
What beats my mind is that how they're able to distribute laptops to individuals when schools don't have computers.
The answer, your answer is as good as mine. Who needs it most? Is this the most pressing need that we have at the moment that we can use our scarce resources to meet? At every point in time, your needs outweigh your resources. So you need to be able to structure it in such a way that the most immediate, most important ones get serviced first before you do the showy priority projects. But that's the exact opposite with this government. Another depressing news that we learned through, we discovered through the budgetary hearings in Parliament was that 8,000 people planted 15,000 trees in a year. Everyone planted 2.5 trees. 1.5 more.
Yeah.
1.5, you need 2.5. Yeah. I've been going around saying 2.5. Pardon me, I'm a lawyer. 8,000 in a year. 8,000 people planting 15,000 trees in a year. And we paid them for the year. Where are the trees? Nobody knows. It's just like the so-called Asontaba trees. They claim some was lost in bushfire. Show us what you planted. Let somebody go and do an audit. You won't find 200,000 trees, but they claim they've planted how many? 5 million.
Yeah.
Creative accounting, something to make them look good. It doesn't speak well of us. It doesn't speak well of our governance. It doesn't speak well of our leaders. It doesn't speak well of the entire profession of politics. And it rubs off on all of us because people lose credibility in the democratic experiment. And so they'll just say, there they go again. More sweet talk, no action. That's not what we need. A time will come when nobody will listen to anything anybody says anymore because they've been lied to for far too long. And those lies have been exposed once too often. So it endangers everybody. But we can't say we don't need democracy. The alternative is too frightening. And we've been there before as a nation. And we've decided that we don't want it. So government, please, stop this wanton dissipation of our resources on projects that are really not necessary.
Some people come up and say that it's also good for the politicians to criticize such projects, but then in reality, both parties, NPP and NDC, benefited from the ex gratia, and that's why we are facing all these difficulties. You think that's true?
Ex gratia is not the cause of our problems. It is the misapplication of our resources which is the cause of our problems. The ex gratia is founded in the Constitution. Unfortunately, in 2009, the NDC made such meat and political capital out of ex gratia payments that now it's come back to bite them. They're finding it very difficult to justify. I really didn't see what stopped the president from deciding at the time that there was no need to set up another committee to review emoluments because Chinwe Hesse had done a great job. And indeed, they had done an immense amount of job going into the comparative analysis of treatment of categories of workers like the Article 71 office holders and the executive and the legislature and the judiciary in other jurisdictions. They had looked at the literature around it, the basic foundations of the different ways in which these office holders are treated and arrived at a conclusion which they thought was best for Ghana based on our own peculiar situations. Even though the Constitution says that the president should set up a committee to determine the emoluments of Article 71 office holders. That committee could well decide that our predecessor did such a great job that we will adopt the recommendations of that committee with a 10% or cost of living adjustment based on the realities of the situation on the ground. Point. What the government failed to do at the time was that it set up Ishmael Yamson to review Chinwe Hesse, which it had no right to do. Because you cannot review the work of the committee set up by your predecessor, because it's finished its work, it's been approved by Parliament, that Parliament has been dissolved. You can't go back and apply whatever decisions they make retrospectively. Our law frowns on retrospective application of any decision, because at the time those acts were taken, it was not illegal. You can't pass a law or formulate a decree or policy later to criminalize or bastardize something which was done properly previously. So Ishmael Yamson was a lot of money and time wasted.
On committee allowances.
Absolutely. They just went and threw away our money and wasted our time and our years, because nothing they did was implemented. They just chucked it in the drain, in the bin. And government surreptitiously went and applied Chinwe Hesse. But by so doing, it failed to set up the Rama committee on time. So the emoluments of the 5th Parliament of the 4th Republic were not determined, and they were being paid on account based on what Chinwe Hesse or whomever had done, whatever they decided to pay. So all those arrears were accruing. So as at the time they finished their work, it had to be applied retrospectively. That's why the ministers of state are here are being paid sums such as 32,000 a month or some ridiculous things like that, and have been collecting those sums of money since November or thereabouts. So you can't wish the problem away. It will come and bite you. It's the same way in which we're dealing with the workers' agitations. Once an award is made, the proper thing, in my view, is to sit down and arrange a payment schedule and stick to it. If you don't, it's not going to go away. It will grow. And I'm sure at some stage you'll even be asking for interest.
The doctors already have started asking for it.
I knew that was going to come. Present value of money. What maybe 5,000 could have bought 2 years ago is a whole lot less than it can buy today. That's why when you borrow money from the bank, they charge you interest. To compensate for, this is one of the reasons, to compensate for the loss in value of the money, particularly in a regime where we're seeing the falling exchange rates and rising interest rates and all that, which I'm not an economist. Let me not delve in an area that I'm not looking, which would affect the value of the city and the money cash in hand. So, yes, so trouble one hour in the break.
We'll take a break at this stage, and when we come back, we'll continue with the very frank discussions that we're having with Madam Ursula also. Welcome back to Minority Caucus. We've been having a very frank discussion about the economic mismanagement of Ghana's economy. But back to the Supreme Court case. I'm going to read to you a very simple example, but not before I open the phone lines for you. The number to call is 030-2211-701324. I'll repeat, 030-2211-701324. Now, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia's affidavit that was presented to the court, point 79, is very interesting, and I'll read to you that in some instances, votes obtained by the first petitioner were unlawfully reduced, whilst at the same time, votes of the first respondent were illegally padded with the sole purpose of procuring victory for the first respondent in the 2012 December presidential elections. Particulars: 1. That at the Open Square New Market polling station in the Atebubu Amentine constituency, Brong-Ahafo region, with code G230509, 97 votes were declared as having been cast in favor of the first petitioner, that is Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. However, on the results collation form, this was for no reason reduced to 17. Point 2. That at the Baptist JHS New Tafu polling station at Menchia South constituency, Ashanti region, with code F150506A, 96 votes were recorded as having been cast in favor of the first respondent, that is Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. However, this was increased. First respondent, that is John Dramani Mahama. However, this was increased to 960 on the results collation form. 3. That at the Nana Boabasa polling station in the Menchia South constituency, Ashanti region, with code F150306B, 450 votes were recorded as having been cast in favor of the first petitioner, that is Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. However, on the result collation form, this figure was reduced to 405. These are some of it. And I can tell you that for all of these that we've been talking about, we have pink sheets, loads of them, to back each and every one of these allegations that we have presented in our petition. As you can see for yourself, clearly, these are pink sheets, and there are a lot of them that we have to back each and every one of these allegations that we are making. Ademuda, welcome.
Very much, Nana Damwa. Good evening, and good evening to Honorable Esla. In fact, we appreciate her work and your work as well. Congratulations, Madam.
Thank you very much.
Your seat. And we are really very grateful about that. I just want to add my voice to all the comments that have been made by Madam Esla also and yourself. You see, there's a strategy these people are employing. They know that very soon they are going to lose this battle because they stole the mandate of the Ghanaian people. And that is why all these things are happening. So they want to mismanage and hand over a messed up economy to us so that Ghanaians will in turn blame us. That is why they are doing all these things. Look at the information that has just been released by Mama Ayerga. You see their insensitiveness they have. Look, how can you say that you are taking the Labour Act and you are saying that the doctors have gone on an illegal strike? That is not the only part that talks about it. They are saying that it is an essential service. And in the essential service, that they do not go on strike. And they are given a time limit for 2 weeks. You must address their concerns. If you fail to address their concerns for 2 years up to now, and you think that going on strike is an illegal, then what have you done? You have perpetrated more illegality than they.
Thank you very much, Ademuda, for your call. I would have to take Bako from Yendi at this moment. Bako, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Good evening to you, Madam Osla.
Good evening.
Good evening to you too.
The only institution to save Ghana now is the Supreme Court. No matter what we do, Ghana will not be better because we are being ruled by fears, as said by Mr. ICP. We are being ruled by fears. So the best institution to save Ghana now is the Supreme Court. I am very hopeful that the petitioners are going to win this case. Yeah, so let's wait and pray.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. King Campbell also from Yendi. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chief.
My regards to Osla.
Thank you.
I am very happy for hearing her voice on this minority caucus this evening. In fact, she mentioned before she started the program, she used her own things on the program. Also, so NDC should know that what they are doing is not that we are forgetting of it. We are piling it, and we are waiting to see if they have if they will do the right thing or they will not do the right thing. It's the same similar thing happened to us in Lady. We are waiting to see. Up to now, we haven't seen any secretary do anything about it. When somebody parked his car under his house, nobody was there, and the cars were burnt, and they identified the people who burned the car. But yet, we are not seeing anything about it. We have nothing to say. We are praying to God that God and the Supreme Court make the thing justice so that Nana Akufo-Addo will be the president of Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you too very much for your calls. You can join the discussion on 030-2211-701-324. So, Madam, back to you.
You know, the day of reckoning will surely come. When the petitioners first went to court, all manner of comments were made, including the fact that, oh, they have no evidence. And some journalists were in fact, one of them made me really upset in the studios of another radio station earlier on in the year, because he kept on saying that, what did Sir John mean by we've uncovered 1 million irregularities? It's not true. He's making it up, a bunch of liars and statements to that effect, because periodically they had been putting out the analysis of the results of some of the work, the analysis that was being done, and it seemed to be changing at every time. And I said, of course, if today you uncovered 10, you put it out. Tomorrow you uncovered 20 more, you say, yes, we found 30 so far. And if we have uncovered 1 million, yes. Now it's 4.6 million plus. Was Sir John a liar or a seer? Was he a prophet or a charlatan? But there you have it. And they said, no, we're just a pipe dream. We want to keep our supporters happy so they don't check out the whole bunch of incompetents who lost us the election. That's why we're making all this noise about evidence in the election petition. There you have the evidence.
Okay.
Tons and tons, boxes and boxes, and loads and loads and loads of that evidence.
It took us more than 20 photocopier machines to actually be able to turn out those sheets of papers and box them up and everything. It's quite a lot.
And I'm not surprised, because the pink sheets from 11,916 polling stations are a lot. The
You have
pink
to run
sheets,
15 copies of
thank you. Pink sheets from my constituency alone, I had to find boxes to stack them in when we made copies of them as well. So you can imagine, from all these countless constituencies and polling stations around the country. And the Electoral Commission says they've done no wrong. Why are they now trying to use the back door to get more time to analyze our evidence? I don't understand. Even if the petitioners hadn't presented all these evidence and they had been going to the trial sight and scene, if the court had decided that they would only take oral evidence and not affidavit evidence, I would have assumed that by now, the Electoral Commission, being in the custodian of the originals of these sheets, should have organized itself in such a way that it would have teams of people analyzing the pink sheets like the petitioners have done. So they'll be in a position to answer. It's not just to, off the top of your head, say they don't have any case. Nobody used any biometric, everybody used biometric verification. There was no overvoting. How would you know if you haven't taken the trouble to look at what the petitioners are looking at? And you have the pink sheets. And all the evidence is there on the face of this particular record. So when they're making all this noise, I just say, oh, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So let's just wait. It's not pudding, let's say kakro. Let's just wait and see what transpires at the end of the day. Now, like my people will say, Ebo Boba, and they're scrambling for cover. They should be resolute and stand and start doing their work. I must commend the entire team of those who've worked on this case from day one. They've done a phenomenal amount of work, and the attention to detail is mind-blowing. Particularly when I read about the forgery in the overseas voters list submitted by the Electoral Commission. And you see that the fifth digit of the duplicated names, fifth and last digits are the ones which appear to have been changed, and it's almost systematic, as if they ran a computer program and fed them in, and it generated the figures they wanted. And they thought nobody would find it out, because they probably believe the adage that if you want to hide something from a black man, hide it in a book. We don't pay attention to the printed word, so they could slip it by us. But they counted without the brain of Dr. Bawumia, and probably that's why some people wanted to bump him off. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that it was no accident, because I don't see how the back tires of all three vehicles in the convoy can burst when every other car on that road just went off safely. So I believe that it was a planned thing. But the good Lord will protect us from all our enemies. And I pray that every scheme and machination planned against any member of our team will go back to sender. Let them have a taste of their own poison, and we'll see how it goes. But the case is now in court, and come next Tuesday, we will be there to see how our lead witness, Dr. Bawumia, starts the evidence. But looking at some of these things, and it's been replicated on such a monumental scale, planned, it's like a planned looting of the mandate of the people. That's why we say they're stealers. And nobody should be offended. But in Ghana, a thief is a jewel.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Eslawusu. It's been a very great show having you here. To those teaming supporters of the NPP out there, this is what I have to say. That the battle is a lot, and we continue with it. There are loads and loads of people doing very diligent work to ensure that this court case ends the way that it is supposed to end. And inshallah, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo will be installed as president of this country to come and clear the country of this rot that is currently engulfing us. My name is Nana Kofi Opondam. Until we meet again next time, bye-bye.